I thought everyone's baby slept and everyone's baby was happy and everyone's baby had like the same temperament. And that's just not how it is at all. So I knew that if I was going through that, I couldn't be the only person that was going through that as well. And the more I shared, the more messages and emails and stuff I got from other moms who were like, "Thank you. I feel like I was alone, or I feel
Mhm.
alone in this journey because I feel like no one talks about it."
You're listening to episode 109 of the Mom Talks with Christa podcast. Thanks for joining me this week, guys. I am so excited to share another exciting episode with you guys today. If you're watching the video of this, you can see the next stage of our nursery is complete. Our crib is up. I'm so excited. I love being in here just because it's so cute. We're working on a lot of different things and it's just so fun getting it together. So if you're not watching the video, you're listening, just imagine what you think it would look like, and then you can look it up on YouTube. So I hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving. It's crazy how quickly this time of year comes and goes. And I just want to remind you guys to really soak it in when you can. Be present for those moments. I think it's so interesting, like when we're at home, like bored or doing mundane tasks that maybe are repetitive, we're like, oh, I can't wait to do something like big, or you look forward to exciting things and then they happen so quickly, and we don't always like soak it all in, like the smells, the people, the excitement, the food, whatever it is for you and your family. So I hope you were able to truly enjoy yourself, your family and friends, or if you did something at home. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago, this can be really hard around the holidays. I mean, in general, as we get older, there's so many expectations that are put on us, but especially during motherhood, you can find there's even more expectations and things that you might find you're supposed to do or you feel you're supposed to do. And so it can be hard to remember to think about putting you and your family first when it comes to saying yes to things or going to do things that you might not have time for. And I talked about this recently in a peanut pod about expectations from others. And yes, we get a lot of expectations from others, but a lot of the expectations that we have, we actually put them on ourselves. And I don't mean that in a negative way, like, oh, you're the problem, you put these expectations on yourself. It's more like we maybe at some point we were told, maybe we saw it, we heard it, that a good mom does this, or we should do this in order to blah, blah, blah. We then put these expectations on ourselves, being like, well, if I want to be a good mom, I have to go here, here, and here. I have to bake all these things. I have to go to all these things. I have to have a spotless house. And we put these expectations on ourselves when there's no one checking the box for us. It's us putting these expectations here when we could let go of some things. It is really up to us to decide what is important and what isn't. When you're making your lists or you're getting organized with things you have to do in quotes around the holidays, really make it clear to be like, okay, is there something on this list that isn't as important this week? Maybe the week around Christmas or something, you have tons of baking to do and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to keep the house clean. Maybe don't. I mean, unless you're hosting and you people staying with you. But think about what makes sense for you. Anyways, I'm going off on a little tangent here. But I just hope you're able to enjoy yourself during Thanksgiving and have some well-deserved fun and relaxation because, we have more holidays coming up. We're in that holiday season. So, we have Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, so many others, whatever you celebrate within your family. And I just think it's important to remember these things as we get closer to them, what things make sense for you. And I always like to say that saying yes to everyone else is saying no to you. So even if the other people you're saying yes to are these unrealistic expectations that you've set for yourself. If you're like, oh, I have to get all these gifts by this date, maybe it's not realistic. And just ask yourself, like, what's realistic for me? So, anyways, kind of talking about things that are coming up. These kind of relate to what I'm just talking about. But coming up, our next peanut pod is Thursday, December 1st. at 1 p.m. Central, and we are talking about stress management tips during the holidays. This will be a really good one with the holidays coming up right around the corner. We're still in that holiday season. We kind of move from Halloween right into Thanksgiving, right into the others. There's not really like this relaxing time. So make sure you find that relaxing time and be like, it's okay that I didn't have my house decorated the day after Thanksgiving. It's okay. Or the day after Halloween, which some people do. I don't know. That's not me, but if that's you, more power to you. And so we're going to talk about ways to manage stress around the holidays. And I think that's really important because it's an ongoing thing that we can work at being a little better at, right? Then next, our Facebook room will be Wednesday, December 7th at 11 a.m. Central. And we're talking about gratitude and sharing tips for rewiring your brain. We've kind of talked on this before, but it's with a different audience. So I'm excited to share this with the audience and kind of see where it goes. This one's never recorded, never shared. This is just a personal room. We're all in there sitting with our cameras on or off if you're not comfortable with it. But it's always a great discussion to have as well. I always do some door prizes as well. So some people will leave with some prizes, all good stuff. All right, on to today's episode with Nicole Stewart. We are talking about honesty and motherhood, and I just really enjoy talking with her. She talks about how honesty can bring you closer in motherhood instead of living with unrealistic expectations or feeling like you have to pretend what you're going through or ignore what you're going through. How, Instagram, social media makes it really easy to be like, everything's picture perfect. We're all good here. When in reality, you might be struggling a little bit. So she really talks about how honesty is the key to connecting to yourself in motherhood. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you guys, and stick around at the very end for our Mom Tales of the Week. All right, guys, today I have Nicole Stewart on the podcast, and we are talking about honest motherhood. After becoming a mom herself, she realized that there was so much that she didn't know. There was so much that wasn't talked about. She would just see on Instagram, like the picture perfect motherhood life, smiling through everything. And she realized that there was a need to be more honest and vulnerable in motherhood journey. So that's what she does. She shares very honest things that she goes through, and in a way to connect and empower other women to share their stories. And I think it's a really important conversation that we have, just about being more honest with yourself and finding your safe space of people you can talk to. And if you don't have that person or you need someone else to talk to, finding a therapist, because it's just so empowering to be able to understand your emotions a little bit better. Even just if you don't understand what you're feeling or why you're feeling a certain way, talking with someone is going to help you feel more connected to who you are. And we just have a really great conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Nicole Stewart. Before we get started, can you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
So my name's Nicole. I'm a mom of 2 boys, which is crazy because I always thought my first would be a girl, and now I live in a house of boys, which if you're a boy mom, I know that you get it. We live in Vancouver, Canada with my husband. We got married last year, actually, in the height of COVID, when I was 5-ish months pregnant with our second. We had postponed our wedding so many times and just kind of went for it. That was nice. And right now I'm really just focusing on me, taking care of myself. I think I struggled a lot with my first. I adapted well with my second, and then kind of hit a roadblock again. So I'm really just slowing down and focusing on my mental, physical, and emotional well-being, while also sharing my story and encouraging other moms to do the same.
Love that. I love that we're getting much more like with different platforms, like sharing that like honest side of motherhood and being more vulnerable in stories. Cause I feel like so many times before it was like this picture perfect, like everything's great and just put a smile on your face. And so I love that you're adding to that with this honest motherhood platform that you're kind of sharing. So what kind of got you into that?
Kind of exactly what you said. When I was pregnant with my first, it was 2017, and Instagram and social media wasn't what it is now. It was still kind of like that photo sharing platform. People weren't, I think that like the influencer and the creator stuff was like just getting started. So everything I saw on social media was these like picture perfect photos of families and these like matching outfits and these stay-at-home moms who cook and bake and get all creative all day. So once I became a mom with my first, I was like, what is happening and why does no one talk about this? And then I started talking to my friends who were already moms, and they were, being like, I get it, I was there, or I'm there now with you. And it just made me realize that there wasn't enough talk about that honest stuff of motherhood, because I thought everyone's baby slept and everyone's baby was happy and everyone's baby had like the same temperament. And that's just not how it is at all. So I knew that if I was going through that, I couldn't be the only person that was going through that as well. And the more I shared, the more messages and emails and stuff I got from other moms who were like, thank you. I feel like I was alone, or I feel alone in this journey because I feel like no one talks about it. So that's kind of how it all started for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that idea of like everything being perfect and everything's great, like leads people to like that loneliness feeling, or like they're a failure because like,
Yeah.
oh, that mom, like she never like cries or gets upset or overwhelmed. Like everything's just perfect.
Yeah.
And then you just start feeling like, oh my gosh, I must be a failure. Maybe I'm not meant to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think I always see that quote online that's like, you have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce or something like that. And I hate it. I'm like, yeah, I love Beyonce. She's like a queen, but also like she's got cooks and nannies and personal trainers and housekeepers and like assistants. And like most of us don't have the luxury to have those things, right? So it's just like taking a step back and being okay with like the reality of what you're living in, right?
Absolutely. Taking out that kind of like comparison game, because I think there's kind of like two sides to it. Cause I feel like in some ways it can be helpful, not comparison, but like having that community of being like, okay, let's do this together. Let's empower each other. But in other ways, it can be very harmful because it's like, we start like self-deprecating, like, oh, I must be awful at this, or, like she can do all that, why can't I? And it creates this, we don't look at our, yeah, like what you're saying, kind of like our own, what we have in front of us, like our own family, our own, because every baby has their own kind of way of doing things. So you can't always parent the same way.
No, they've got their own personality and their own needs and their own wants. And it took me a really long time to figure that out. And every woman is different, and every marriage or partnership is different, and every relationship is different. And support, whether you have in-laws or family and friends around you, everyone's situation is so different. And just coming to, like I said, like accept that and take yourself out of she can do it all or she has it all, I think is the biggest thing that moms can do for their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about motherhood and how it kind of like surprised you, kind of being like, wow, why is no one talking about this? Or am I the only one going through this? Like, what for you was like that most surprising thing you think that you were like, okay, I need to talk about this with someone?
I think it was two things. I think the first thing was definitely like the exhaustion part of it. I remember leaving the hospital and the nurse was like, oh, if you can survive like the first 6 weeks, like you'll be fine. And I was like, first of all, it sounds so looming and dooming. Like, and then I got past 6 weeks, and I feel like, at least for me, the first like 6 weeks were almost easier because you're still kind of riding those like postpartum hormones, or you can be. It was like month 3 and month 4 where my son was still co-sleeping. We were still having problems breastfeeding. I was still recovering from my C-section. And I was still like, holy shit. I'm still in the depths of it. And then that sleep deprivation just continued because he got all of his teeth before he was 1. And so that
Wow.
whole thing was like, the first year was just a hot mess. And I thought like the newborn stage would be the hardest. And then the postpartum anxiety, depression, and like identity crisis
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest like personal experience I had. I knew I was suffering, but I didn't feel sad and
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really understand it. And then a fellow mom was like, I suffered from anxiety and I just never heard of postpartum anxiety. I'd always heard of postpartum depression and it can come in so many different ways for different people. But that was exactly what I was feeling. Like I went home. I'm originally from Toronto, so I went home to Toronto for Christmas and was so excited because I thought I'd have all this help with my
Mm-hmm.
baby and would be able to maybe get some sleep. And then I got home and the idea of all of these people holding my baby and like being in my personal space gave me a massive like anxiety and panic attack. And I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't handle it. And I didn't know how to communicate it at that point. So that's when I knew I needed to go to therapy and I needed to talk to someone. So I did. And she said to me, she said, a big thing that people don't talk about when becoming a mom is grief.
Mm-hmm.
Like grief, like who died? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? And she's like, you have to grieve who you used to be and the life you used to have in order to move forward. And I
Wow.
just had this like massive light bulb moment because I didn't want to be the person that I was. I didn't want to like, you know, travel all the time and go away all these places and leave my baby with like my mother-in-law or a babysitter. But I also knew I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom and that wasn't that path for me. And so I really had to like take a step back and grieve my former life and grieve my former friendships, my former relationships with everyone in order to start figuring out who I wanted to be as a mom now. And I'm now still going through that with my second because I think it shifts again when you add other little humans into the mix. So I think, yeah, the exhaustion was like the first physical like wake up call
Mm-hmm.
in motherhood where I was like, oh, this is real, this is happening. But the biggest personal thing for me, and I think a lot of moms go through, is the identity crisis that comes along with motherhood.
That's such a good point to bring up. There's that quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something about like, when the baby's born, we're like all enamored over this new life, but we forget to
Mm-hmm.
look at the mom and be like, she's starting a new life, a new chapter right now, too. So many times,
Yeah.
people are like, how's the baby? How's the baby? But, we forget to look at the mom and be like, oh my gosh, this congratulations to you, like this is a new start for you. And one thing I tried doing like to my friends too is like once their baby hits a year old, it's like happy birthday to the baby, but congratulate, like like happy 1 year of
Yeah.
parenting to you, because I mean
Yeah.
that's no easy feat.
Yeah. Yeah. I always try to give my mom friends like a bottle of wine or champagne or
Mhm.
tea or something I know that they'll enjoy on their kids' birthdays. It's actually my nephew's birthday today. And I messaged my sister and was like, happy 5 years of momming to two little ones. Like, you're killing it. You're a rock star. You're a great mom. And I just like always try to focus more on the mom than the kids because everyone else is focusing on the kids and like
Yep.
that mom needs love too. And it's something that I think as a society and as a culture we can do more.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. Checking in on your mom friends, and then it kind of
Mm-hmm.
gets reciprocated back. It kind of becomes this community and
Yeah.
lifting each other up for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember after I had my second, I was at I was at Costco and I had him in the carrier. He was, oh my God, he was so young. He probably was like 2 months old. And, everyone's walking by and they're just like, oh, so cute. Like, how old? Like, kind
Mhm.
of fawning over the baby, which is, fine. And then I got in the checkout line. There was a mom in front of me with her daughter. And she's like, oh my God, hi. I said, hi. She's like, how are you? And I was like, wait,
Like, do I know you or
me?
yeah.
Yeah. You're talking to me or you're talking to the lady behind me? And she's like, I just remember having my second and everyone was like, how's the baby? How are you? Like, are you sleeping? Da, da, da. And no one actually checked in on her. She's like, so
Mhm.
now anytime I see a new mom, I just say, how are you? Are you
Oh,
okay? And I was like, about to burst into tears. Oh, God's go, because she was probably the first, stranger
yeah.
to check in on me. And since that moment, that's what I try to. Anytime I see a new mom in the store or like in the park, and we start the conversation, like I try. It may sound bad to some people, but like I don't even ask about the baby. I just ask about her and how
No, I
she's
love
doing.
that. Yeah, I think that's an amazing advice and something so easy that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
We can, if we
Yeah.
see someone, because it's such a good point, like, everyone, it's just what we do. We see babies and we like, gawk at them a little bit like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. And so, it's not like we're ignoring, but, trying to almost, it's like that the motherhood, or what do they call it? The invisibility of motherhood, when everyone just
Yeah.
looks at the baby. And so
Yeah.
you probably just felt so seen in that moment. Like, I'm not invisible.
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm like, I have a purpose. I'm, right here. She
Yeah.
can see me. So I love that.
Yeah. I think we're still people, right? We're still people outside of just being a mom, or outside of just being a baby attached to us. And it's like when you're pregnant, I find like everyone is so nice to you, and everyone holds doors open for you and opens, like moves off the sidewalk and like talks to you. And the moment you have the baby, like it feels like no one cares. Like you're
Mhm.
walking on the street pushing a stroller, and like people kind of look at you like you're an inconvenience. Or like the
Mhm.
amount of times I've walked up to a door and like no one holds the door open for me. I'm like, oh, it's okay.
I get
I'll
it.
get it. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's crazy how much it shifts. Like when you're pregnant, you're just seen as this like beautiful creature and being, like creating and sustaining life. And then you give birth and it's like,
Mhm.
baby. And it's like, what? Hi, still here.
Still here.
What
Yeah.
about me?
Yeah. It's like this like societal thing that we need to like start changing like the narrative on, changing that
Mm-hmm.
script of, and I think it starts with women noticing, and then it kind of can
Yeah.
trickle to other people too, but really like yeah, recognizing each other and
Yeah.
saying like, okay, like that woman did to you, like that's so meaningful to be like, I've been there and I remember what it was like, so I'm gonna turn and like help you too. um
Yeah.
and we kind of talk a little bit about challenges and things that surprised you. What's another like challenge you kind of went through in your postpartum journey that maybe once sharing your story, you realized a lot of other women had gone through, or wasn't as, was maybe more common than you thought?
I would say the biggest thing was that in between of, I didn't want to be a full, at the time, I didn't want to be a full corporate mom, but I also didn't want to be a full stay at home mom. And I thought I had to be one
Mm,
or the other. And I really struggled with that. I really struggled with like part of that identity crisis. It's like, what do I want to do? And who do I want to be for me? Like out, love my children, but like push my children aside, and who
mhm.
am I, and who do I want to be in that like job and career wise. And I found so many other moms struggled with that as well, because like we talked about at the beginning, you see a lot of stuff online. It's shifted a lot the last few years, but a lot of stuff of like the perfect Pinterest mom who like bakes all the time and creates activities and like homeschools, and that's great for the mom who wants to do that. But there are so many moms who don't, and I think struggle with the guilt that comes along with wanting more for yourself outside of
Mhm.
motherhood. And that's something I talk about all the time. It's just, it's okay to be more than a mom, because you are a woman first and a
Mhm.
mother second. And I think women have difficulty, we can have difficulties coming to acceptance of that, and not guilting ourselves for not wanting to be home all the time or be with our kids all the
Mhm.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great point about working mom versus stay-at-home mom, it's kind of become this like pick who you are. And it's like, this is your
Hmm.
squad, like, oh, all the working moms, all the stay-at-home moms. And
Yeah.
it's kind of how it's like brought, like, and it's like, oh, these are two different women. Like, you have to choose your side. We see it all the time. There's like so much judgment that can come from both sides. So to be able
Yeah.
to kind of almost form your own path, like you're saying, is,
Hmm.
what makes sense for me? Do I want to work a little bit to, get out of the house? Do I want to stay at home a little bit? But if I stay home, I'm not going to be the baking mom, or I'm going to, do
Yeah.
things differently,
Yeah.
into that comparison kind of game.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I did when my son was 10 months old. I actually went back to serving, which I hadn't done in, oh my God, 4 years or however many years. And I did it just to get out of the house and to see people and to have that like human adult interaction and have extra money coming in. And it was
Mhm.
amazing. It was so nice. I did it like 3 days a week at night. I would stay after work and have some wine with like my coworkers. And it was like the pick me up that I needed of time. And so like I always encourage moms to even just start with something small like that. If they're not sure if they want to go back to a full-time job, or if they want to switch careers or they want to stay home, just like pick up a side hustle at like a restaurant or a coffee shop, or like network marketing, or just
Mhm.
something to do for you, because the more small things you do for yourself, the more you'll be able to figure out maybe what you want in the long run.
Definitely. Yeah. And you make a good point there too with, you know, I think we feel like we have to like find our identity so quickly too, where it's like,
Hmm.
okay, do I want to be the coffee shop mom, or do I want to be the baking mom or the artist mom? And we feel
Yeah.
like if we go into something, we have to go 100%, we have to do it every day. But just trying things out. And like you said, some things might be things you haven't done in years, but you're like, oh, I'm just going to
Yeah.
see if if it works. And that kind of
Hmm.
helps, I think, like figure out our own passions and, finding our own thing as opposed to doing something because our kids like it or our spouse likes it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, like backstory, but so like I said, I was originally from Toronto. When I first moved to Vancouver, I moved because I needed a change. It was terrifying. I didn't really know anyone out here, but I was like, the worst thing that's going to happen is that it's not going to work out. And I moved back home. I have a
Mm.
great family, great friends back home. And so that's kind of the perspective I take with everything in my life now, and everything through motherhood is like, I was like, well, do I want to go back to serving? Like, I'm not, I was 30, I'm not 25 anymore. Like,
Mhm.
but I was like, whatever, I'll try. And the worst thing that's going to happen is that I don't like it and I quit. My life's not any better or
Mhm.
worse off. Right. And so I kind of like, for all the moms listening, like the worst thing that's going to happen when you try something new, whether it's like a personal hobby or a career change, is that it doesn't work out. And that's okay, because you'll just go back to how things were before, and then you try something else. And then you just keep doing that process until you find your groove and find what you're meant for, or what you like doing.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great point. So, how do you think moms can make sure to take care of themselves after becoming a mom? Like what worked the best for you through your journey, and then what would you recommend to maybe those that are pregnant right now and kind of being like, okay, I want to be able to take care of myself. How do you see them being able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's different for every woman and every mom. There's so much talk in the online space about self-care and doing X, Y,
Mhm.
and Z, and all this stuff. And not gonna lie, I was guilty of it before too, of like encouraging moms to do self-care. And there's a lot of talk about like a hot shower isn't self-care for moms. And I'm like, well, it is for some moms. And so I think we just need to stop telling women
Mhm.
what self-care looks like. But I really encourage moms. Something I found worked for me was to make, I call it like a joy list.
Mhm.
And that can be a list of like anything that makes you happy or feels good inside. And
Mhm.
that's like small things like having a hot shower, taking long baths to like a girls' weekend or a week away with my husband or playing golf or reading a book, just like things that take 10 minutes and then things that take a weekend or a full day. And then that way, when maybe you do find yourself in a little bit of a rut, because we will all throughout motherhood, and you have things to turn to and things to go for, because some days self-care looks like Netflix and chill and a glass of wine or a glass or a cup of tea. And sometimes I just went away for a girlfriend's bachelorette party for 3 days, and that was amazing. But it just depends on where you are, your life circumstances, and the season of life that you're in, what self-care looks like for you. So I would say whether you're pregnant or you're a new mom or you find yourself kind of lost in the chaos that is motherhood, just make a list of things that make you happy or make you feel good and play around with doing them, and also be comfortable with trying new things. Because I think, I had a conversation with my husband the other day, and, he does all these things and it's amazing. He like goes out and plays golf with his friends and he has boys' nights, and he's like, why don't you go out and do something? And I was like, what do I want to do? Like, I love seeing my friends, but like outside of going out for girls' nights and girls' dinners, like I'm still figuring out what I want to do. And that's like that identity shift that's happening again. But I think, making a list and writing down things that you like to do and things that you want to do when you do have a moment to yourself will make all the difference, because every day is different in motherhood and we have no idea what the day is going to bring us. So being prepared for those ups and downs of time and no time will allow you the grace to move through it all with ease.
Yeah, I love that, because I was saying this in like a Peanut Pod, or it might have been a podcast recently, talking about how, when things are going great and we're in a great mood, it's so easy to like plan for those things. But you almost need to, like you said, like have that list or have a plan for when you're not feeling your best, or you do need to recharge your battery, because then you kind of know where to like lean towards, or what, does bring you joy, because it's so hard when you're already feeling like overwhelmed or stressed to feel like, what do I need to do right now? Without thinking, like, what are the things that like recharge me or make me feel like myself again?
Yeah. And I think accepting that they might look a little bit different, like pre-kids, I used to love meditating and I love doing like more intense workouts. And now meditation doesn't look like me sitting down in a Zen little quiet space for 30 minutes. It's usually when my son is in the stroller or the carrier and I have my AirPods in and I'm listening to a meditation that way. I don't really enjoy the intense workouts anymore, because motherhood is so crazy and intense that I find it actually makes me more stressed out a lot of the time. So now I do a lot more like personal, like yoga, slower movements, like body movements. So all those things that may have brought you joy before can still now bring you joy in motherhood. They might just look a little bit different through this season of your life.
With you kind of going into this like honest motherhood journey, kind of realizing like we need more honesty, for moms listening that are like, oh, I have such a hard time like being vulnerable and like really sharing, what's your advice for them? Like, why should moms be more honest in their motherhood journey, and what kind of benefit can that bring to them?
Find your safe person. I think we all have, one or two or three or four or five, depending on the person, people that we, feel like we can tell our deepest, darkest secrets to, and start there. And start small. You don't have to divulge your life story to everyone and share your really hard moments, but start with like your safe person, whether it's like your husband or your sister or your mom or your best friend, or maybe it's a stranger at the grocery store. Like, whoever you feel most comfortable, start there and start small and then work your way up. And then I find the more you talk about it, the more you realize that almost every other mom out there has also struggled or is struggling at some point, depending on her circumstances and her situation. But I always, when a mom tells me that she's pregnant and it's super early and she's not really telling anyone, I always say, go tell the lady at the grocery store, because you want to get it off your chest. And the lady in the grocery store doesn't know, like, your mom and your aunt and your best friend, and so no one's gonna know. But you're not like holding this. When you're like holding something in and you're holding this secret, you feel like someone's like sitting on your chest. And that's the same thing when you're going through like the ups and downs and the depths that can be motherhood and a postpartum journey. And so just like let go of one thing, release one thing. And then I find the more you start talking about it, the easier it'll get. And then people will start reciprocating and sharing with you. And then it just becomes this dialogue and this conversation, rather than you feeling like you're spilling your guts to someone. And also too, that there's nothing wrong with therapy ever. At any point in your journey, there can be such a stigma around mental health, as we know, and there is not enough support for maternal mental health and postpartum mamas by any means. We have so long to go. But speaking to someone and just having that safe space to spill your secrets without fear of judgment, or men like to fix things, and your husband wanting to fix all your problems. It's just this nice space to feel comfortable and sharing maybe where you're struggling. So yeah, start with your safe person and don't be afraid of therapy, because it can make a world of a difference in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, totally agree on that. The therapy, like if you just feel like, you have things you want to like get off your chest, or you're just feeling a little off, like even just, I feel like it just helps just to like express our own emotions, because sometimes we don't even know how we feel about something until we kind of start talking to someone, and we're like, oh, I'm actually really upset about that, or actually like this makes me feel this way. And so that alone I think is just really powerful.
Yeah, and we carry so much on our shoulders in motherhood. We manage it all. And so then when you're also carrying the weight of your own feelings and emotions, it can just feel like another thing you're having to do and another thing you're having to worry about. So just like letting it go and releasing it, even like writing it down in a journal or like on your phone before you go to bed, just like getting it out will release maybe one less thing that you're carrying through this season of your life.
Yeah, I love that. And so I love to end these interviews with a fun thinking question, I call it. So if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
Take care of yourself too. And I think that like sums up everything that we were talking about, but we don't take care of ourselves, and we live in a society, unfortunately, in a culture that also doesn't take care of mothers. And so you have to take care of yourself as much as you take care of your child or your children or your family, because your mental, emotional, and physical well-being matters too. And people always say you have to be healthy to be a good mom, and yeah, that's true. But you also have to be healthy for you, and you as a person, like you aside from motherhood, deserve to thrive in every aspect. And so make sure that you're taking care of yourself too.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And where can everyone follow you, and what kind of other information do you share? What can they find on your page, and so much more?
On Instagram, I'm playing around with TikTok, which as a 30-ish-year-old woman is super weird, because I feel like it started as like this dance thing.
Yes.
And now it has shifted into like, you can find everything and anything on TikTok, and it's amazing. So on Instagram, I'm the Nicole Stewart. Stewart is my marriage name. And then TikTok, I'm at Nikki.Stewart. So you can type that out in the info below. But I just share a mix of my honest motherhood journey, like we've been talking about, and really simple tips on how moms can take care of themselves mentally, emotionally, and physically, because we tend to overcomplicate it, and it really doesn't need to be that complicated. It's like as simple. Sometimes it's like making sure you're drinking enough water, or asking your partner, learning to be comfortable with asking your partner or asking a family member to hold your baby so you can have a hot, uninterrupted shower without little hands creeping in the door or a baby sitting in a bouncer watching you shampoo your hair in a frenzy. But just the little things of making sure that you're taking care of yourself too, and nourishing your mind and your body with the right things so that you can feel good through what can be the most exhausting seasons of our lives.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes as well so everyone can check that out. But thank you so much for coming on. I think this was a really important conversation. We need these reminders all the time. So this was really
absolutely
great. All right, guys, we're back for our Mom Tales of the week. And this week we asked, what was the toughest lesson you had to learn after having your baby? So I'm going to just read a few from our Facebook group, all anonymous, as I like to leave them. So it's a safe space. These are going to be real. So here we go. This person says, there is no village everyone tells you about, just me and dad doing our best. Another girl says, if you want a village, go build yourself a village. It's just me and my husband and I and our 2 dogs and our newborn out here. The rest of our family lives in a different state. When we moved out here, I found some people at church. And when I found out I was pregnant, I really went to work to find people. And in the 3rd trimester, I joined the local moms group because I needed mom friends. My husband doesn't really need people in person, just connects with them back home. But I need people who can go for coffee with, come over while I take a shower. I need people, so I went out and built my own freaking village. It's not a very big, some of my village is a lot more in the trenches with me than others. But we have one set of couple friends, and I have a couple friends that are primarily my friends, and so that's my little village. I started serving people in the children's ministry, so I found people who love kids and could potentially babysit when I'm ready. I found a couple of high schoolers that are looking for cash that can shovel my driveway and mow my lawn or walk my dog, and a kid who loves to clean so I can hire her to come to do dishes and laundry or whenever I feel overwhelmed. My village didn't fall in my lap, and most of my friends pre-baby are not really in contact anymore because they're in different stages. I worked for my village and it's still growing and getting figured out, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it for me, for my marriage, for my husband, for my baby. Go out and make your own village and find your own people if you don't have one. Okay, I wanted to share those 2 different responses. And again, like, these are anonymous. I don't know anything about these people personally, but I thought it was such interesting perspectives because the second one really makes a good point. I think a lot of times we expect, or, when we're pregnant, we hear people say all these things to us that are really exciting and can't wait for this. I'll be there for this. Let's go do this. But it doesn't always happen that way. And so she made a really good point about you have to actively find your village. You have to actively go out there and make a plan for things, because when it's like a new journey, it's new, you're new to motherhood, your new space, people also want to give you your space. People also might want to respect your boundaries, so they don't know when to cross it. So sometimes being able to find your own boundaries, find your own village, find your own group that you can rely on is huge. So I thought she said that so beautifully. And as me, like, pregnant with my first baby right now is such like an encouraging thing. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I need to go do that. I need to like find people that can be my village. I know I have people now that will be a part of it, but it's also important to find people, maybe new people, maybe realize that when you're in a new stage, your friendships might change a little bit, or relationships you have might change a little bit, and that's okay. So I just thought that was a cool response. This girl says, everything doesn't always go the way you want, but as long as baby is healthy and happy and fed, everything's going to be okay. I like that. Can't always plan for everything. Sometimes things will just go crazy. This one, which I love, says it doesn't make you any less than to ask for help. This is huge. I think as women, a lot of times we don't want to ask for help. I'm speaking as like a people pleaser myself. It's really hard for me to ask for help. I kind of just do things on my own, but asking for help doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less than. In fact, there's so many people out there that are wanting to help. And so I think it's an important lesson for all of us to get humbled a little bit and be like, you know what? We can ask for help. We can't do everything on our own. And there's so many people out there that are willing to help. So I think that's a good one. This person says, you are more capable than you believe and you can do it. I love that because it kind of goes into the episode I did with Whitney Copeland a couple weeks back. She says sometimes we limit ourselves because, we tell ourselves we can only do a certain amount, and not saying like, oh, put more on your plate if you're not super overworked. No, it's not that at all. It's just saying like, yes, have boundaries where you need to have boundaries, but don't limit yourself in the ways of saying you can't do something, because we are powerful, we are strong, and I think we can do almost anything we put our minds to. So I love that. This one says, everything is just a phase, and just when you think you have the hang of it, it changes. Yep, we've heard that before, and I'm about to find out for myself. So we'll see how that goes. Here's one, that you will forever be behind on everything. The house is never clean. Dishes are never done. The laundry will always be piled high, even when you just did it. It just really gets overwhelming. There's not enough hours in the day, the way society operates. When you work a full-time job, you only have so many hours to do things and still actually spend time with your children. As a mother, you are the default parent. Your brain is always moving a million miles a minute, trying to remember every appointment, and when you need diapers or no new clothes or things to send to daycare. And I agree, there's no village. I know I'd have more of one if I lived by family, but where we're currently at in life, it's just chugging along with periodic help here and there. All right. This one says, trust your gut. I can't tell how many times I've listened to those around me just for my gut to have been proven right. Your babies equal your gut. Mama knows best. I love that one. We just talked about that in a reel TikTok I did, because I think so many times people tell you they know what's best for your baby. They will try to come in and say like, well, this happened to my child, like you need to do this. Or if you go into a doctor, they might say like, oh, it's fine, but you have a gut feeling. Listen to your gut, listen to those intuitions you have, and you know what's best. There's a lot of advice in here and a lot of hard lessons that people had to learn. If you're in our Facebook group, definitely check it out. There are so many great advice in here. I don't need to be super mom and try to do it all. I just need to do my best most days. Yes. Be patient and kind to yourself. Yes. I learned who my village was, and it was not who I thought it was going to be. Yeah. I mean, that can definitely happen. I think it's so important to have these realizations and look back and see growth and progress and see how you've changed and see maybe how your village has changed and that you didn't necessarily see it that way. And that's okay. All right, guys, that's all I'm going to read this week. There's so many, like I said, there's so many great lessons and advice. And it's important to remember that everyone's is different. So just because people here are saying this doesn't mean that's going to be the case for you or is the case for you. You might be looking around and be like, I have a great village around me. This has been awesome. Or you might say like, I don't have any village around me and I've tried and I can't find one. So I think it's important that we remember each individual motherhood journey is different and it's unique. It's the constant like repetitiveness that I always say, but like do what's best for you and your family. Acknowledge that everyone's different. And so no one really truly knows you or your life or what works best for you. You know what's best. Mommy knows best, right? All right, guys, that's all I have for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of future episodes. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. See you next week.